I'm sure that you're familiar with products such as iPhones, iPads, and Apple Watches. But how much do you know about the man who's responsible for putting those Apple products in the hands of me and 50% of American households, according to an economic survey done by CNBC News? Steve Jobs was a remarkable man. First, he was successful. Second, he was an innovative visionary. And third, he was business-minded. So Steve Jobs was the founder of Apple Computers and one of the most successful entrepreneurs in history. First, he was successful. According to an article published by Entrepreneur Magazine, which is a magazine that presents business information for interested readers, Jobs was put up for adoption immediately after he was born. Luckily, he was adopted by a loving family who raised Jobs as his own. He later was given the opportunity to attend college. But Jobs dropped out shortly after because he decided that it was too expensive. He later met up with his childhood friend Steve Wozniak and started his business Apple Computers in his parents' garage. Against all odds, that business grew to become the most valuable company in history as of February 3rd, 2016, according to Fortune magazine. Many people don't realize that Jobs was successful in other areas other than Apple Computers as well. He made large contributions to companies such as Next Computers, which was a computer company that was more centered around making computers for schools and for businesses. And he also made large contributions to Pixar Animation, which is very successful today. After that short hiatus where he wasn't working at Apple, he then returned back to his company to realize that it was on the brink of bankruptcy. Jobs was able to rekindle his company and later was able to grow it to achieve a net worth of over $700 billion, according to Time magazine. To review my first reason that Steve Jobs was a remarkable man, he was successful. So you now know that Steve Jobs was successful. But what set him apart and what made him different than other successful businessmen? Well, Steve Jobs was able to imagine his products in a way that caused leaps and bounds to occur throughout the entire technology industry, not just Apple Computers. Second, he was an innovative visionary. So Jobs was innovative in his methods of simplicity, which was unusual for the time that he was starting his company. Before him, computers were mainly used for businesses and educational purposes and not for just the everyday person, and he was really able to bring the computer industry to everyday people. He aimed to make his technologies simple, fun to use, and user-friendly. Jobs' passion and vision for his company is demonstrated in this quote from him. "We started out to get a computer in the hands of everyday people, and we succeeded beyond our wildest dreams." To review the second point, that Steve Jobs was an innovative visionary. Steve Jobs was not only an innovative thinker, but he also had some of the most admired business strategies to date. My third point, Steve Jobs was business-minded. Jobs had some of the traditional characteristics that makes a good businessman, such as he was determined and focused, and he expected a lot from his employees. But that's not really what set him apart. Jobs was an excellent speaker, and he loved to tell stories to get people excited and inspired about working on his products, and also to sell them to people. According to Arthur Gensler, who was a former employee of Jobs and now writes articles for Fortune magazine, for Steve, selling his products hinged around telling the story of each product's individual design, capabilities, and potential. In my third point, we discussed some of the qualities of Steve Jobs that helped him to succeed in the business world. The third reason he was a remarkable man, he was business-minded. In conclusion, Steve Jobs was an incredibly successful man whose innovation and business strategies are still admired today. Hopefully, by listening to this speech, you are more familiar with the man whose legendary products affect our everyday lives. So to review, Steve Jobs was a remarkable man. First, he was successful. Second, he was an innovative visionary. And third, he was business-minded. Thank you for listening to my speech.